Okay.
So we ended last topic, kind of going into balance, which to me is, I could talk about balance all day long. And so if you could kind of simplify this topic that we can go on and on and on about, of balance, how would you best simplify these terms? And then also if you can give some examples, like a horse that maybe does XYZ is dealing with this type of imbalance, and I don't know, just kind of that. So I mean, I liked hearing other people feel like they had rushy, bolty horses that they felt like they were bolting, even though they were just maybe a hand gallop. Um, and be able to relate to that and kind of have a visual idea of what was actually happening as far as balance goes. So I'll let you take over that.
So, balance, is one of those kind of a little bit ambiguous words. We use it all the time, but what does it really mean? I'm not tipping over. I'm not falling down. So I'm obviously maintaining my balance. My horse isn't crumpling to the ground. So he's obviously able to maintain his balance, but not in a way that gives him the freedom to move without tension. And so this is the big thing. Even in the dressage training scale, the word balance is not there. And years ago, I remember at a big conference, and the scale was being discussed, and I raised the question, how come the word balance isn't there? And the room went quiet. Nobody said anything. And then all of a sudden somebody said, well, it's understood. And I said, well, no, it's not, because so many
What's
people
understood?
yeah, so many people are riding out of balance, and they don't know how to help the horse find a better balance. So when we talk about just riding in general, every single horse ever born, every horse who ever will be born, is born what we call crooked. And it, just like I was born right-handed, I'm never going to right-handed. I'm going to be right-handed. If I want to get better at my left hand, I have to practice. So I'm dominant on this side. It's going to be my default to always go to my right hand. How does that manifest in a quadrupedal animal who doesn't have opposable thumbs? It's in the way he waits or stabilizes himself. So every horse leans a little bit more on one shoulder than the other, one front leg than the other. And that becomes their sort of habitual sitting leg. So how does this manifest when a horse leans more on one front leg than the other? If he leans on the right shoulder, when he turns to the right, he'll turn very fast, very often, motorcycling around the corner on two wheels. When he goes to the left, he'll often drift out to the right. So a turn to the left is slower, a turn to the right is faster. A horse will bend his head and neck easily to the left, not so easily to the right. And we often hear people explain this by saying, well, the muscles are short on this side and long on that side. It's much less about that than it is about balance, meaning that head of his weighs 50 pounds. That is a sack of grain. And those of us who ride know what that feels like, carrying around a sack of grain. Imagine that out on the end of a very long neck. And if I'm standing with my weight on my right front leg, and you ask me to put that 50-pound weight over my left leg, I say, sure, no problem, because I'm already counterbalancing to the right. But now you ask me to bend to the right. In other words, put that 50 pounds over your right front leg. Well, I'm going to say, no way, Jose, because I'm already leaning that way. Yeah. If I put more weight over it, I might tip over. So horses will try to find a way to deal with the question through trial and error. And very often they'll swing the haunches to the left rather than bend to the right. Because in their mind, they're thinking, okay, my head is here. She wants my head over to the right. Oh, let's see, if I put my haunches to the left, now my head is over there. But that's not what we wanted, right? And so what is our job? To help the horse shift the weight to the left so that he can counterbalance. And we see them do this all the time in freedom. They use the shifting of the weight from one shoulder to the other to counterbalance the weight of the head and neck. So guess what? We can use the bend in the head and neck to counterbalance the weight of the shoulders. Same thing that they do.
Yeah.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about crookedness, what we refer to as crookedness, and I like to refer to as uprightness or not uprightness.
Yeah.
So you can imagine how a horse will, this is the other thing, is that so many things that we consider behavioral problems, he does this every time he goes in that direction, or, you know, these are not behavioral problems. These are him trying to do exactly what we're asking him to do with a body that is in a state of tension on one side or the other, using the front legs to brace his forward momentum if he's too heavy on the forehand, all kinds of things. So a horse can't go forward if he's extremely crooked. He's escaping out through one shoulder, or he's tilting too far. He's going to try to slow down, not speed up. And then we talk about collection. Collection is the shifting of weight off the shoulders and thus freeing up the shoulders and putting a little bit more weight on the hind legs. And the reason for this is it's easier for the horse to carry that weight of a rider if he's not too heavy on the forehand. Mm-hmm. When we get on a horse, 2/3 of our weight goes over the front legs and only 1/3 goes over the hind legs.
Oh, wow.
So if a person weighs 150 pounds, they get on a horse, they just put 100 more pounds over the horse's front legs, which are already carrying a lot of weight, and only 50 pounds over the hind legs. So by guiding them into a collected frame, you help them get some of the weight off the front legs, and thus you take away a lot of the tension, muscular tension, that creeps into those front legs because he's using those front legs to stabilize himself.
Yeah.
We want him to be free in the shoulders. So this is what balance is about. You know, I had an interesting discussion with someone who came to one of my clinics to watch, and he was used to teaching horses things, and he was saying, well, that horse is just behaving badly. And I said, no, he's not. It has nothing to do with behavior. It has to do with fear. He's losing his balance, so he's doing this or that behavior, bolting or scooting out, not because he doesn't want to do what you want him to do. He's doing it because he's trying to save himself from falling down. So it's our job to bring him back. And the man was telling me, well, he trains dogs and blah, blah, blah. He knows all about training. And I said, okay, what is the biggest difference between training a dog and training a horse? I said, I train my sheep dogs to herd sheep, and they know, if I whistle one whistle, they go around the sheep to the left. If I whistle another little whistle, they go around the sheep to the right. So what's the difference between training a horse? No difference at all. And I said, yeah, there is. And I am never going to sit on my dog. So the horse is dealing with my weight. The horse is dealing with having to carry my weight around. If my dog had to deal with carrying a weight around, then I'd have to change the way I train him.
Yeah.
But I can just train the dog's brain. But I have to train not only the horse's brain, but his body.
Okay. So we were talking about you're not going to sit on your dog.
Yes. So the horse is having to deal with the unbalancing effect of the weight of a rider. So when I train my dog, it's training his brain and his brain alone, how he runs around the sheep, or if he's an agility dog or whatever he is, how he does that with his body is up to him.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm sitting on my horse. My weight influences and disturbs his balance. So it's not just about him understanding, his brain knowing what I want him to do. It's about me helping him be physically capable of actually doing it now that he's carrying my weight around.
Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest things about balance that people often don't understand. So often I hear people say, he knows what I want him to do, he just doesn't want to do it. I say, it doesn't have anything to do with him wanting to do it or not wanting to do it. He's not thumbing his nose at you. He's physically incapable right now because you're sitting on the wrong side, or you're, using too many aids all at once or something. Yeah.
Yeah. I like the example you give of the women carrying water on their heads.
Yes.
Can you expound on that little example?
Well, okay. So one of the things that another example very similar to that, if you go to the circus and you see the acrobats, and there's 4 acrobats standing next to each other, shoulder to shoulder, and they've got 3 guys standing on their shoulders and 2 guys on their shoulders and 1 guy on the top.
Mm-hmm.
And that guy on the top is balancing a broomstick on his head, and there's a plate spinning on top of that broomstick. And I ask people often, what is the one element of this whole pyramid that dictates the balance of the whole thing?
Mm-hmm.
And most people say, oh, the 4 guys on the bottom. It's the plate. If the plate moves, everyone moves under it.
Yeah.
No matter which way it goes. And this is the same as, somebody carrying something heavy like a jug of water on their head. The only reason they can do it is because they keep it centered exactly over their center of balance. And if a big stiff wind came along and blew that big urn forward, they would run under it to stay under it. They wouldn't try to carry it off of that center balance. And this is so critical. This is why our position is important, not because it's pretty, but because it's about helping the horse with their balance.
Yeah, that's one thing you told me before is because I was like, well, it how can I sit there? It feels like there's no horse underneath me on this side. And you're like, well, what does the horse feel? Like, put aside what you're feeling and what
this is so critical.
What is it going to mean to the horse?
So many times, I think, especially in the writing of books about the correct or the proper way to do this or to do that, we hear people talk about where you put your weight. So for example, shoulder in, it's written in 100 books, 1,000 books, that you put your weight on the inside seat bone and you drive the horse to the outside rein. And I think this has got to be that Le Guerinier, when he first accidentally stumbled on the shoulder in, that this is what he felt in his seat, pressure on his inside seat bone. But it doesn't matter what we feel. What matters is what the horse feels. So if I put my weight out to the right-hand side and my right seat bone comes off the horse, it doesn't follow down the back, but I feel pressure on my left seat bone because I'm hanging out here over to the right. I'm going to feel that my weight is in my left, but the horse feels my weight moving toward the right. And that's what's important, what the horse feels. And he will follow that weight. And we can exaggerate the weight in an unhealthy way. It really would be ideal if we thought about, I put my energy toward, the right front shoulder, or put my energy to and this is when we break down the seat position into 4 quadrants: right front, right rear, left rear. We can become so much more precise and actually move our weight so much less to create exactly the desired result. But it's about precision then.
Yeah, that grid that you showed me on the saddle, it just simplified everything, because I was no longer saying the inside of this seat bone and this and that. It was just like, look, dummy, keep it simple. Where do you want the horse to go? It's going to catch you. It's going to try to stay under you, ideally.
Yeah.
Can you kind of name some of the things where this tension, which kind of leads to this horse's balance issues, can you kind of show me where it would show up, and some examples, so maybe people could kind of get an understanding of, oh, my horse does that. Oh, I never thought about it. Maybe it's as simple as a balance issue. So can you kind of give me some examples of that? We were talking about where this tension and imbalance shows up in some horses, like could it be in the contact and the tempo, that
Okay.
kind of stuff.
So great. So when a horse is in balance with himself as he's moving around, he will maintain his speed. He will maintain, now speed and rhythm and tempo are all different things. Speed is miles per hour. Tempo is the beats per minute, so if a horse is trotting, for instance, and the tempo is 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2, if the horse stays in balance, it will continue in that tempo. If he falls in and out of balance, he will be going 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. So it speeds up and slows down the tempo. The rhythm is the same, 2 beats, but the regularity of the rhythm changes. We know that a horse is not balanced in self-carriage when he's rigid or bracing in the reins, when the contact is what so many people call a horse with a hard mouth, is a horse who's bracing against the bit rather than a horse who's carrying himself so he doesn't need to brace against the bit.
Yeah.
So tension in the reins, tension in the contact is a big indicator of loss or lack of a horse being able to stay in balance. Speeding up, changing, when you bend or try to turn, a horse speeding up or motorcycling around a turn, drifting out, braking from one gait to another. I mean, there's so many things. Horses who brace in the pole on one side because they're leaning on the other side. So all of these are signals, if you will, to us. Our horse should be moving in relaxed muscles. We personally, if we're walking along, we would never choose to tense one side of our body and continue to walk. But we're not being asked to carry a weight and do a shoulder in, or some movement with our body when we're out of balance. That would cause tension.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. I like those examples. So let me go ahead and stop it, and we'll get back to it in just a second.